3, 2, 1, go! Shalom, shalom, shalom. I am Elder Priest Sabal Awalam from House of Israel, New York, New Jersey. I am your host, and welcome to a late as all hell edition of Friday Night Heat. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Kwum Yashala, I am Sabal Awalam, Elder Priest of HOI, New York, New Jersey, and welcome to this late is all hell edition of Friday Night Heat. I just want to say shalom to all of HOI, New York, New Jersey, the mother chapter, HOI DMV, HOI Atlanta, HOI Detroit, HOI Milwaukee, HOI Chicago, HOI North Carolina, HOI Indianapolis, Indiana, HOI LA, HOI Atlanta, HOI Vegas, HOI Houston, HOI Memphis, and I heard there's even brothers out in Seattle, HOI Seattle, HOI, and even brothers all the way in the UK, HOI UK, on the other side of the pond, where the weekend might be over, but still they gonna get this late as hell edition of Friday Night Heat. And if there are any other HOI camps that are out there that I didn't mention, that's actually a good thing, because that means that HOI is growing exponentially. And if it's difficult for me to keep up, that's a good thing. That means HOI is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's a wonderful thing. Also, I want to give shout outs to Ambassadors of Christ, Lions of Israel, House of David, Stream of Wisdom, some brothers that I saw on Prospect Park in Brooklyn a couple of weeks ago, Wisdom of Yahweh. And I'd also like to give shout outs to our brothers, WFI, Watchmen for Israel, Rum Gadol Gabarium, Soldiers of Yahweh, Believers of the Way, and also give a shout out to all of the other brothers and sisters in Yahweh that are out there doing this work in righteousness and sincerity. Now, I know there are some other camps that I may have forgotten, but if I didn't mention your congregation, specifically Israel, I do apologize. As a matter of fact, you can hit me up with the name of your congregation. This is going to be on YouTube. The channel is Sabal Awalam, or God's Made Man. Capital G, capital M, capital M. M like Mike. God's Made Man. That's the channel on YouTube. And if you want me to give a shout out to your congregation, leave the name of your congregation in the comments. I'd like to give a shout out to Elder Priest Zabak, who is selling Hebrew calendars, and he's selling tzitzis, and he's selling life-size menorahs. I'd like to give a shout out to Brother Yakataz, who is in the Servants. Shout out to that congregation. Shout out to the Servants, and shout out to the Saints. Give a shout out to the Servants and Brother Yakataz, who is running the Brew Boutique on PayPal. BREWBOUTIQUE. That's Brew Boutique. And Brother Yakataz is selling different menorahs and girdles and armbands. I'd also like to give a shout out to Brother Nadiv, NADIV, on Facebook or Instagram or any other social media. And he is selling armbands and headbands and vests. Oh, I got to give a shout out to Brother Yatai and Sister Yash of HOI Philly, because again, I got their stuff on again. Brother Yatai and Sister Yash are responsible for this shirt I have on right now, HOI Till the Chariots Fly. And also on the back are the 12 tribes. And that's the shirt that I have on right now. And I also want to give a shout out to Zuriel's Fashion, Zuriel. apostrophe S, Zuriel's Fashions. The sister Zuriel makes excellent garments and other things. And again, I was saying to brother Elder Terah and brother Maccabees, shout out to those two men. They put me on to Zuriel's Fashions. I looked at her stuff. Zuriel apostrophe S on Instagram, Zuriel's Fashions. I looked at her stuff and I said, yo, Akim, if I had disposable income like that, I'd have zero problems dropping 800-900 or a rack. Yeah, that is how much her stuff costs. It might run you 7, 8, 9, maybe even a band for one of her garments, but it is well worth it. And I said to brothers, if I had the disposable income, I would definitely hit her up. I'd also like to give a shout out to Glorious and Warlike Apparel. Glorious.and.warlike on Instagram. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Sister Saparya Yasharala. That's Saparya on Facebook. Saparyah. The sister's name is Saparya. She lives in Florida, and she has a Facebook site that sells various items of the faith. I'd also like to give a shout out to, and I think this is hers too, 12 Tribes Beard Products on Facebook. That's the number 12 Tribes Beard Products. I'd also like to give a shout out to, on Instagram, 144K Shirts and Sauces. That's 144. These are all numbers. A lowercase k, Shirts and Sauces. It's all one word. 144K Shirts and Sauces on Instagram. And the brother sells shirts and sauces that are definitely worth looking into. The brother stuff is fire. Also want to give a shout out to Staffs for Israel on Instagram. That's Staffs, the number 4, Israel. Staffs for Israel on Instagram. And I will tell y'all this. If you have a Hebrew business that you would like me personally to advertise, God's Made Man on YouTube. That's how you get to my site on YouTube. God's Made Man. And if you have a Hebrew business or a congregation, leave me the name of your business, leave me the name of your congregation, and I will give you I will give you a shout out on a future episode of Friday Night Heat. And I don't charge for promotion. It's all to get brothers and sisters' names out there for the Most High. So hopefully I can help in drumming up business for brothers and sisters, so we can all keep our money within the Hebrew community, just like these heathens do. Ishmael, Moab, Elam, they keep their money in their community. And I want to help us in the nation do the same thing. So I'll say it again. If you have a product or a service or a Hebrew business or even the name of your congregation, God's Made Man, capital G and 2 capital M's. God's is capitalized, made is capitalized, and man is capitalized. And it's all one word. That's how you can get at me on YouTube. Leave me the name of your congregation. Leave me the name of your business, and I will give you a shout out on a future episode of Friday Night Heat. Now, before we get into any further, also some other businesses. I want to give a shout out to All Purpose Trucking and Transport, LLC. And also want to give a shout out to all purpose. Okay, there's another business. There's another business that I usually give a shout out to, as well as All Purpose Trucking and Transport LLC. There's another business I want to give a shout out to. I do apologize for that bit of dead air. I just can't think of the name of the business right now, but I'll look back on past episodes of Friday Night Heat. Oh, I just thought of it. All Purpose Trucking and Transport LLC and Garrison Logistics LLC. These were some of the first businesses that I gave shout outs to on Friday Night Heat. And hopefully these businesses are still around. And if they are, I want to give shout outs to them on Friday Night Heat. All Purpose Trucking and Transport and Garrison Logistics. And both of them are on Facebook. And, brothers and sisters can get with them and see what's going on. And again, I want to give a shout out to Sister Yash. You can get at her on Instagram, BLAKPERL, Black Pearl 197150 on Instagram, or you can get at her on Facebook. She uses her government name on the book, Stephanie Greenfield. That's either Stephanie Greenfield or BLAKPERL 197150. That's how you can get in touch with the sister and your brother Yatai. That's her Lord. YAHTAI, Yatai Yasharala. And they're the ones that blessed me with this shirt and some other gear. And also, I just want to say, for anybody in HOI, we're going to be wearing white short sleeve versions of this shirt when we go down to Rebuke America on the 250th anniversary of the 4th of July. Now, bearing that in mind, that being said, as always, and this is something that you need to think about in the summertime, remember to hydrate. Now, I'm going to tell y'all, this is not a fresh bottle of Poland Spring. I'm going to keep it all the way real. I just started going back to the gym recently, Planet Fitness, and they have water fountains where you can put your bottle under the sensor and fill your bottle up. Now, because this is a bladder buster Poland Spring, I did have to go a couple of rounds, but that's okay. But in any case, however you do it, just don't go to the kitchen or bathroom sink. Remember to hydrate. Because dehydration is not fun, and dehydration is a lot easier to achieve. We only a couple of weeks away from the summer. So, as always, with every summer, you're going to start, anytime you sweat or anytime you pee, water leaves your body. So to keep water in your body, you got to remember to hydrate. And that's what I always tell y'all. Remember to hydrate. Now that we've done all of our recognitions and salutations, let me get to it. This particular Friday Night Heat comes at the request of Elder Priest Zabak. I told him I was going to do this for Friday Night Heat. So, shout out to Elder Priest Zabak. This Friday Night Heat is for you. Brother Malcolm, Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Brother Minister. Now, we're going to talk about Malcolm X and we're going to talk about Brother Minister, but that's going to tie into my next subject. I want to cover a couple of things on this episode of Friday Night Heat. Now, we all, we know the brother's story. He was born on May 19th, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. His May 19th was basically a couple of weeks ago. Brother, it's not we don't use it as a holiday because we have our high holy days that we celebrate according to the Bible. Not to make nobody mad, not to hurt anybody's feelings, but Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, we don't deal with all of that because none of that is in the Bible. None of that is in the Bible, and all of it has very paganistic and very murderous origins. And a lot of it is just hustles of the powers that be anyway. So, but we have our high holy days that we celebrate. We just celebrated the Feast of First Fruits a couple of weeks ago out in Philly. But because Brother Malcolm was a freedom fighter, and because Brother Malcolm stood up and fought for our people, we want to recognize Brother Malcolm X on, his birthday was a couple of weeks ago. So Elder Priest Zabak asked me to talk about, now I'm sorry I'm late, but here you go. Now, Brother Malcolm went out there and the truth that he put out there was unapologetically raw. It was real. because he was basing it on his own life and what he saw in America. And also, Denzel Washington did a superb job portraying Malcolm X. And that goes to show you that Hollywood is not fair. Hollywood is very biased. Denzel didn't get an Oscar for his excellent portrayal of Malcolm X, but what did he get his 2 Oscars for? Playing a runaway slave that fought for the Union Army in Glory, and playing a dirty cop in Training Day. And Rafael Montez, I think was his name, was the dirty cop in LAPD's Rampart Division that Denzel's character, Detective Alonzo Harris, was based off of. They didn't just come up with the Training Day story out of the air. It was based on Alonzo Harris was based on a real person. But again, the main part I want to impart is Denzel didn't get an Oscar for portraying Malcolm X. And I was living in upstate New York at the time, a little town 30 miles south of Albany called Catskill. They were so afraid of black people rebelling that they wouldn't show Malcolm X in the movie theater. And I remember when I was in school, and I first became aware of racial politics and social climate in 4th grade. I was 9 years old. And I remember my 4th grade teacher saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be like Malcolm X. You should be more like Martin Luther King. They bombed his house, and he was still talking about nonviolence." But here's what Mrs. Hauser failed to mention. Martin Luther King, at the end of his tenure, Martin Luther King said, "I fear I may have integrated my people into a burning house." Meaning at the end of his life, he figured out like, yo, I'm doing this whole thing wrong. And he wasn't killed because he talked about integration and black and white people coming together. No, he was killed because he talked about black people getting reparations, the same reparations that white farmers were getting. Watch Martin Luther King's speech, The Two Americas. And see, everybody loves to talk about I Have a Dream, but nobody wants to talk about The Two Americas, which was another sermon that Martin Luther King gave. And also, Malcolm X said he didn't believe in violence just arbitrarily. No, he believed in using violence when by any means necessary. Malcolm X believed, and that's why he and Martin Luther King would constantly clash. And also, give y'all a little tidbit. This is very common knowledge, but there are those of our people that are into comic books and they're into anime and things of that nature. For Marvel Comics, and for anybody that has even a casual interest, and that's what those people are called. People that don't study comics and are not devoted fans of comic books, they're called casuals. But even casuals know, at least among black folks, even the casuals know that Professor X of the X-Men, Professor X is based off of Martin Luther King, and Magneto is based off of Malcolm X, at least in philosophy, because Professor X was all about humans and mutants living together and being one, and Malcolm X and Magneto was like, F all that, these people are trying to kill us. So why don't we just go get away from them and go live our lives? And that's what Malcolm X described. Denzel, in the Malcolm X movie, he described in the powder keg. If you keep a powder keg, and that's the state of black people at that time, during the 50s and 60s, if you keep a powder keg in the house, the powder keg is going to blow up. And when the powder keg blows up, you're going to destroy the entire house. So what you do is you take the powder keg and you put it out away from the house somewhere. That way, if it does blow up, the house is still intact. And he said that so-called black people and the state we were in at the time, we were the powder keg. So he advised and he recommended, and you still got so-called black folks like this today, what he recommended was separation. Malcolm X was known as a separatist. Martin Luther King wasn't. And then there's always that historic picture which talks about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King shaking hands, because the two of them, even though their solutions to racism in America were in diametric opposition, they were still able to come together on some common ground. That's why there's that historic picture of the two of them shaking hands. And in all actuality, towards the end of their lives, they started to switch places. And that's something nobody likes to talk about. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X started to switch places with their ideologies. And in all actuality, if you watch the Malcolm X movie, when they had surveillance on Malcolm X, the FBI agents were saying, wow, compared to King, this guy's a monk. Because as it came out, Martin Luther King was what they call a philanderer. Martin Luther King had a whole lot of women, and, you know, he would be on the road with those, doing whatever with these women. And they tried to use it, and they told Coretta on him. But to keep it 100, to stay real with it, Coretta knew the game. And she was like, well, okay. But she knew. Coretta knew the man. And Coretta knew the man had flaws. But she understood that he was a man, but a man with a mission. And she didn't let what these FBI agents did. She didn't let that cloud her judgment and try to mess up the mission because of the flaws of the man. Malcolm didn't have these same flaws. Malcolm was very loyal to Dr. Betty. May the two of them rest in peace. To Dr. Betty and their 4 daughters. And Malcolm's thing was just getting out there. And as we say in the Israelite nation, he wanted to get out there and do the work. He wasn't running around with a whole bunch of different women like Martin was. And Malcolm X, from the time he was in prison until he came out, Malcolm X was a Muslim. He was affiliated with the Nation of Islam. And he said, internal conflicts with the Nation of Islam have forced me out of it. Then he came up with his own organization, the Organization of African American Unity. And one thing he said was, and you know, Malcolm, brother Malcolm, he knew that he had to do what he did to keep the culture vultures away. And he said, there can be no black and white unity unless there's first some black unity. Whites can help us, but they can't join us. So Malcolm, when Malcolm was doing his thing, he knew, like, we need to keep the culture vultures and the infiltrators away. But brother Malcolm X's birthday was this past May 19th. And we want to, Elder Priest Zabak asked me to acknowledge the brother, Malcolm Little, Malcolm X, El Haj Malik El Shabazz, brother minister. Elder Priest Zabak asked me to acknowledge him, and I figured I would take this Friday Night Heat to do so. I did say to Zabak, I said, Ak, I got you. Next Friday Night Heat, I'm going to talk about brother Malcolm. Now, finally, I'm going to say this. Brother Malcolm was a Muslim. And rumor has it, he knew about the Israelites. And he knew that he was a modern day Israelite. And rumor has it that he'd been to West 125th Street, which is where the first real school was. And all of the brothers that are preaching this word today, if you go back, if you take it all the way back to, who were their elders and who were their elders, etc., if you go far enough back in the line of brothers that teach today, somewhere in their lineage is brothers that came out of that school at One West. They said that Malcolm had been to the school at One West, and rumor had it that the brother was getting ready to get down. And that was another reason why the federal government decided he had to go. The same thing holds true with Dr. Khalid Muhammad. Rumor had it that he had been speaking to brothers in Atlanta. Shout out to HOI Atlanta. And Dr. Khalid Muhammad was a very powerful man just on GP. Now, picture a man like Dr. Khalid Muhammad, picture a man like that hooking up with brothers. The federal government thought exactly that and said, this nigga has to go. Now, 4 of Islam's greatest speakers quoted scripture when they spoke. Give me a few, bear with me for just a little while. Heataholics. Shout out to Sister Zimmy Ellison. Zimmy Ra Ellison on Facebook. Shout out to that sister because she's the one that gave the name to the Friday Night Heat fan base. Well, actually, it was a toss-up between Friday Night Heat family and Heataholics. And she said Heataholics, so we went with that. But bear with me, Heataholics, be right back. Okay, this is a Quran. Now, we talk about Muslims and how Elijah Muhammad, Brother Malcolm, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and Louis Farrakhan, all of these men that are supposed to be Muslims, all of these men quoted scripture at some point in time when they would speak. So if the Nation of Islam's 4 greatest speakers, 4 of the greatest speakers that Islam has ever known, have quoted scripture, why don't these brothers get out of the Nation of Islam, take off them suits and bow ties, grow their beards, put on garments, and come back to the nation? Come to the truth. Now, let me get to it. HOI New York, New Jersey, and HOI DMV. Shout out to HOI DMV. But we pulled up to Howard's homecoming, and damn it, Georgia Avenue looked like a hoe stroll. We pulled up to Howard University's homecoming this past October, and somebody made a video condemning us for having a Quran on the ground. And they made all types of comments about us disrespecting the Holy Quran. And I was catching heat about that from the end of October all the way up until January. I was catching heat for that for about 3 or 4 months. These Muslims are mad because the Quran is on the ground. And I got Muslims coming in my Instagram DMs wanting to fight me about the Quran being on the ground. But I don't know if these Muslims ever read their Qurans, but I will say this. The Quran says that the Israelites are the Lord's chosen people. This is the surah of the cow or the heifer. I'm going to read from the surah of the cow. The surah of the cow, verse 40. And the footnote reads, Advice to the Israelites. O children of Israel, remember my favor upon you. And for a footnote, they said Israel and in Islam, they know that even the Muslims, even the Quran tells you that the Israelites are God's chosen people. O children of Israel. And they have a corresponding footnote that says that Israel is another name for the prophet Jacob. So even in Islam, they know and they recognize that the Israelites are the children of Jacob. So even in the Quran, even in the Muslim sacred book, they know that the Israelites are the children of Jacob. And it goes on to say, remember my favors upon you, fulfill your covenant and I will fulfill mine. This is the Most High. This is who they call Allah, or the Most High, speaking to the Israelites. Remember, this is the Most High speaking to the children of Israel, the Israelites. Remember my favors upon you. Fulfill your covenant and I will fulfill mine, and stand in awe of me alone. That's verse 40. Verse 41 goes on to say, believe in my revelations, which confirm your script. Believe in my revelations, which confirm your scriptures. And it says, do not be the first to deny them or trade them for a fleeting gain. And you can put that right in with the book of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 26, or the book of Mark, chapter 8, verse 36. And it says, and be mindful of me, and it tells us to basically follow the laws of the Most High. Be mindful of the Most High. Do not mix truth with falsehood, nor hide the truth knowingly. This is verse 42. Verse 43 says, establish prayer, pay alms tax, and bow down with those who bow down. And it gives more advice. Do you preach righteousness and fail to practice it yourselves? Although you read the scripture, you can hook that up with James 1:22. Be ye hearers of the word, be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only. So that's more advice. Now, verse 47 says, O children of Israel, remember the favors I granted you and how I honored. Remember the favors I granted you and how I honored you above the others. Verse 48. Guard yourselves against the day on which no soul will be of help to another. No intercession will be accepted, no ransom taken, and no help will be given. Now it goes on to list in the Surah of the Cow, ten favors. 10 favors. It goes from verse 40 to verse 60. 10 favors that the Most High gave to the Israelites. And verse 63, God's covenant with the Israelites. Verse 75, disobedient Israelites. 83, the Israelites' failure to keep covenant. So from verse 40 to verse 80, verse 40 to verse 86. Now, I'm gonna read this in due time and take some footnotes. The clear Quran, that's what this is. I'm going to read this. I'm going to take footnotes. But again, I got a whole bunch of proof. In this Quran is a whole bunch of proof. The Quran says that the Most High favored the Israelites above all other people. So my question is, why do you have these Israelites that follow Islam And why do you have Israelites like this guy Sadiq Aki that wanted us to come to Howard University and have a debate, Israelism or Hebrew Israelism versus Islam, when the Surah of the Cow, verses 40 through 83, all teach that the Most High favors the Israelites above all people. So all you so-called black folks that study Islam, and this is what they said Malcolm was going to do. This is why they said brothers that remember Abba Bivens and the school in One West, they said Malcolm, these elder brothers, they said Malcolm was about to get down. That's why the federal government decided he had to go. And in the Quran, the Surah of the Quran, verse 40 all the way to verse 83, which I'm going to read through, tells you about the Lord's favor upon the Israelites. So that being said, what our so-called Judite brothers need to do, because it's a lot of so-called black people that follow Islam, whether they're Sunni or Shiite Muslims, or they follow the Nation of Islam, what they need to do is get out of Islam and come back to this truth while there's still time. Because even in Islam's greatest book, the Quran, the big book of guidance for Muslims, is giving you very explicit details about how Israelites are God's chosen. The Bible tells you the Israelites are God's chosen. The Quran tells you that the Israelites are God's chosen. So if you got the Bible and the Quran telling you that the Israelites are God's chosen, and you got 4 of Islam's greatest speakers, Elijah Muhammad quotes scripture all through Message to a Black Man. I have the book, so that's how I know. Minister Louis Farrakhan has quoted scripture. Brother Minister Malcolm X, he's quoted scripture. And Dr. Khalid Muhammad has quoted scripture. So if 4 of the Nation of Islam's greatest speakers quoted scripture at some point in time, and if the Quran says that the Lord favors the children of Israel, then all you so-called black folks that are dealing in Islam, it's time for y'all to come on home. The evidence is there. It's all there. And I've spoken the truth about everything. So, that being said, black folks that are Muslims, whether you're Sunni, Shiite, Nation of Islam, it's time to come home. It is time for you to come home. That being said, I'm going to say, I am Elder Priest Sabal Iwalam. I am Yahweh's made man. This has been another late as all hell episode of Friday Night Heat. Just a little bug to put in your ear to end your weekend. And I'm going to say, Kwum Yashala, strength and honor, Shalom, HOI till the chariots fly, Kwum Yashala, strength and honor, Shalom, I'm out.